everyone. Welcome back to the Jen GTM show. So, my name is Jen Dawson, and today I'm really excited because we are diving into a part of the AWS ecosystem that many of you, the founders, have asked me about. How is the ISVs actually building traction across APJ? And to unpack that, I've got someone who sits right at the center of it. It's Mokshika. She leads the emerging partnerships across APJ at AWS. I had the great opportunity of meeting her during my last trip in Singapore early January. And she works with ISVs who are really scaling fast and also the ones who are still figuring out the emotion and the ones who have really, got the GTM breakthrough as well. So she sees the pattern that most people never truly get access to. So, Makshika, thank you again for joining. I'm thrilled to have you here. Um, and
Absolutely. No, thank you for the kind words, Jen, and it's a pleasure being here. And I'm looking forward to our chat today and would love to dive into topics you have top of mind as well.
Wonderful. So, could you take a minute just to introduce yourself to our audience? Just to give a little bit about your role and probably your team as well. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mokshika, I'm based in Singapore and I've been with the organization about 9 years now. Always been in the partnership side of the house. And I think um, the best part about this role is that you get front seat access to emerging technologies, disruptive solutions, and even if it's a little part you play in the overall growth of an organization, that's very fulfilling, I have to say. So I lead the emerging partnerships function across the Asia Pacific and Japan market, and we do this through a team of partner development representatives that are based in the countries of the partners that they support. We do manage a volume of partners, so a lot of our activities are geared for scale, ultimately supporting partners right from the onboarding journey to a point where they are co-sell ready and are beginning to enter different markets. And these markets might be different to where they're headquartered out of course, because we understand that organizations are operating more and more like global businesses.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Makshika. So let's start with the big one because I know for sure every GTM leader and founder wants to know this, right? So from your viewpoint, leading emerging partnerships across APJ, I mean, you've truly seen the ISVs at every stage, right? So some has already gained traction with AWS. Some they are really stalling, right? But when you really zoom out, what are some of the GTM patterns or behaviors, consistently separate from the ones who really break through from the ones who don't, from your point of view, Makshika?
Yeah, I think specifically around traction, I think traction starts with clarity, not just the product. And some of the ISVs that I've seen gaining momentum are ones that can articulate in one sentence what are they solving, for whom, and why AWS amplifies that value. So to me, it really comes down to a clear, differentiated solution narrative. And that clarity ultimately then accelerates conversations downstream with customers or field teams alike. The second thing is that these ISVs are looking at the organization, or rather AWS, as a co-builder and not as a channel. And what I essentially mean by that is they actually see partnership as a two-way street. They come in with a partnership mindset from day one. So these are ISVs that are showing up in conversations asking, how can we win together, rather than asking, what can AWS do for me, which changes the overall course of the conversation and how the both the teams lean in. Last but not the least, for me, and this is usually the advice that I do share with partners as well, that the foundation is more important. And that essentially means that whether it's completing a foundational technical review, getting your product listed onto Marketplace, or even attaining a competency designation, I don't think these are just mere checklist items. These essentially are trust signals, which provides your customers as well as AWS field teams with the confidence that you're really serious about this partnership and you're willing to do the groundwork too. So those would be some of the differentiators I do see in ISVs that are gaining momentum versus ones who are just getting started.
Awesome. I think you touched on something that's very important that I get asked a lot in the room with the founders, right? What can AWS do for me? And partnership doesn't start with that question in the first, right? So I think you touched on that. But just to follow up on your answers, Mokshika, what's the one behavior you wish that the early stage ISVs will start doing like immediately?
So essentially, first things first, I think, is to have a very clear problem statement, and a genuine willingness to co-invest, because that really moves the needle. And a few components that would make the big difference is the foundations, getting the foundations right, making sure that you're sort of investing the time, resources, and the effort that's required in building those foundations right. So I know that there are a few requirements as you continue to move through the partner programs, but what I can guarantee you is that those are meaningful investments, and they are from a purpose of building that credibility and capability that customers as well as field teams are out there looking for. So those would be the two bits. The third part that I would say that's important is keeping up with the current trend that marketplaces in general and digital procurement via marketplaces is on the rise. So more and more customers are asking for transactions to happen via marketplace rather than offline. And keeping up with that sort of a trend will ensure that you're staying on course of where the customer is and meeting where the customer wants to meet as well. So basically, what I want to ensure is that we are moving forward with foundations in mind, and that ultimately sets you on a pathway where you continue to see that traction coming through from customers and from AWS teams alike, and ultimately sets you up for more deeper conversations about, where can we work together across industries, across different domains as well.
Fantastic. And I think I want to double click on something that you said earlier is your team also, right? So your team is also focusing on PDRs, PDRs across APJ, right? So I think they are a very critical part of the early momentum that the ISVs create with the AWS, right? From your experience, what does your team consistently look for before they decide, like, okay, yeah, this ISV is worth my time. I'm going to put my energy and build a plan with them and kind of walk them through handhold them from start to finish, right? So, because as you said clearly earlier on, the founders are often thinking about the pitch or their problem statement and so on, but PDRs have a very different and a very specific lens, right? So could you just touch a little bit on that, Makshika?
Yeah, I think velocity matters, and I'll tell you why. Because when I was introducing myself, I mentioned that our team of partner development representatives works with a volume of partners. So essentially, PDRs are wired for momentum because they're managing a pretty large set of partners. So ISVs that follow through quickly, they respond quickly, they follow through on the commitments and conversations that are happening, and are moving deals and conversations proactively will definitely see deeper traction. And case in point right now, for instance, is the partner revenue measurement compliance that is ongoing across, or rather, is something that we're hearing about a lot more. And it is critical to continue to leverage APN funding. Acting with speed here will definitely unlock greater value and also ensure that you're getting the right attention from the teams internally to continue supporting you on that journey. And as mentioning earlier, I think what is important here is intent and not just interest. By intent here, I mean that if there is a genuine willingness to co-invest and you are clear about what's the value proposition your solution has, that really helps move the needle as well with our teams, but also with customers as well. And third, not the least, what I would say is it's also important to look at engaging the ecosystem and not just AWS. So, where we have really seen value or where we have seen partners move really quickly is when they are working with other partners, they are participating in partner programs. They are showing up in community spaces because that indicates long term partnership potential. And really, the level of depth of engagement from AWS follows the level of commitment from the ISV, and those are not independent of each other. So, those would be some of the key levers that our team is usually looking for when we get onto conversations with partners. And in fact, also, usually our first first port of advice as we are starting to share some of the key levers they should be considering as they embark on their partnership journey.
Great. Thank you for shedding light on that. And as we are staying on the topic of PDR roles and what's important for them, what's the one thing that PDRs wish that ISVs understood much earlier in the game?
Essentially, it's to make sure that partnership is a two-way street. I think that's the most important component of it. And I think if I put myself in a founder's shoe, I am sort of running an organization, I'm running a business. And of course, what's top of mind for me is how can I derive value faster? Um, and and rightly so. I think that that makes a lot of sense. However, as I was mentioning, the foundation before the commercial scale is equally important as well. And it's not just from us, it's from a customer's lens. If we keep that customer obsession in mind, essentially what they're looking for is how can I quickly earn trust with this organization, and I know that this is the right organization for me. Essentially, it does come down to making sure that we're spending that time in building that credibility and trust with the customer through these programs that are designed to help you in amplifying your expertise and experience in a particular industry or even a specific workload. So those would be, the key patterns that we typically see in successful organizations, and something that we would like for most founders to sort of keep in mind as they think about moving forward in the journey.
That's very very key because your team is also dealing with a lot of volume of partners as well. That's very, it goes hand in hand. And just to move from that, right? The So you mentioned, the PDRs, they not only work with ISVs, but they also work with the field teams as well, right? Kind of being that bridge and for the ISVs. So as the ISVs are growing, across APJ, how do they know that they are ready for a deeper engagement with AWS teams? So from your perspective, Makshika, like what are some of the key indicators that tell you that a partner is truly ready? Whether, I don't know, can you talk a little bit about whether it's like co-sell maturity, how do you track field readiness, is it marketplace hygiene? What is that key indicator for you?
Yeah, I think most ISVs that are successful in that journey are co investing and not just asking. And what I mean is that ISVs that are truly ready for scale are showing up with skin in the game. So that would make references to co funding. That would mean investing into dedicated headcount, securing executive alignment early on. And really, that sort of helps in also conveying a message that you're setting up your boots on the ground and you're serious about making sure that you're showing up in a way that ensures that you've thought through the different levers that are important for driving that scale as well. The second bit I think you touched on upon is the co-sell maturity. Marketplace, for example, marketplace getting a product listed on the marketplace and waiting is not going to do anything. You need to ensure that you're sort of changing the way your sales teams internally look at marketplace. So that does require internal enablement as well. The separate piece is how are you positioning marketplace to your customers? Are you actively bringing that up into conversations? Because that is when an ISP truly transforms from having a transactional listing to a more holistic and strategic co-sell motion, possibly taking that a step further through working with channel partners and executing channel partner private offers. And I think, in my opinion, that helps you attain much more scale than a direct sales team could ever do, because you're sort of then expanding your overall go to market as well. The third and most important thing that I would say is conversion and not just commitment. And really, the true indicator of that is launched opportunities, preferably in more than one market. Because an ISP that can create and close pipeline in more than one market basically shows their muscle for co sell execution, again, contributing to their overall credibility and the fact that they are serious about expanding their presence either in their current market or a different market, and the fact that they're willing to do the groundworks that is necessary for establishing that growth as well. So the launched opportunities shows credibility as well, and ultimately earns trust with sales teams as well to continue supporting them on that growth journey.
I love what you said. Launch opportunity not just in one region, but in multiple regions. That's a very key takeaway there as well. So, what is the one maturity milestone that's non-negotiable, Makshika?
The one maturity milestone at the end of the day is Marketplace. I think Marketplace is the new co-sell backbone. And essentially, the statistics around us are supporting that as well. We're seeing digital procurement across APJ on the rise. We're seeing customers actively asking for transactions to happen via Marketplace. So if you're not there yet, you need to start seriously thinking about it and starting to think about how do you embed that in your overall GTM motion versus just looking at Marketplace as a platform where once you list your product it would start selling on its own, which we know does not happen. So actively and proactively thinking about how you're leveraging Marketplace as your overall growth journey, of course combined with other mechanisms that are there to support you, for example onboarding the ISV accelerate program, especially if
Mm.
you're thinking of expanding into a different geography. That really makes a difference because it unlocks incentives for our sales teams as well, to start leaning into that co-sell motion a lot more. So I would say these are the two main levers essentially when it comes to defining maturity. And needless to say, all of this needs to be supported with strong executive alignment internally, because sometimes we do see that, given it's a large organization, teams may be a bit dispersed. They may not be on the same page in terms of how they visualize this partnership to sort of move through. So that executive alignment, that dedicated commitment, makes a huge difference as well.
That's really gold mine right there. What you talked about. Thank you for that, Makshika. So zooming out a bit, right, and looking ahead. So you touch base on this one. APJ is such a a dynamic region. Different maturity levels of partners are there. Different cloud adoption curves as well. But looking ahead, what opportunities do you see for ISVs and ecosystem partners to collaborate more effectively with AWS across APJ?
Yeah, so as I was sharing earlier, I definitely, and this is something that I truly believe in, Marketplace is the new co-sell backbone. So if partners aren't already thinking about it, it's something to start thinking about a lot more intentionally and essentially moving away from just transactional listings and thinking about that holistic go to market motion, connecting and unlocking the scale that can come in with working with consulting partners. And very close to that, I think the most underleveraged opportunity is the collaboration, or rather ISVs building with other ISVs and other channel partners. And by this I'm referring to, complementary solutions, joint GTM, shared customer success. Because partners who are proactively investing in these relationships today are essentially building alliances that will pave the next wave of growth. So where we see opportunity is scaling out further, not just directly but with other partners as well that are available in the community out there. The third thing I would say is, industry or vertical specialization is definitely helping unlock new markets. So, what we are seeing is strong demand signals across industries like manufacturing, financial services, healthcare. And ISVs that are building that deep domain expertise aligned to AWS's industry GTM motions are accessing customer conversations faster than a generalist partner can reach. So,
Mm-hmm.
thinking about that specialization, and identifying that space that you want to continue deepening your knowledge and reach within will make a huge difference in terms of the kind of conversations you're having with customers as well. Um, the last but not the least, of course, there's a lot of conversation around AI as a topic.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally believe that AI is not the destination. I think it's the accelerator. Because
Mm-hmm.
the real opportunity is not just in having AI capabilities, but rather developing AI powered solutions that are
Mm-hmm.
integrated into customer workflows at AWS. So really ISVs that are demonstrating that they could develop these meaningful business outcomes are naturally differentiating themselves from other partners out there, and that unlocks the attention as well from sales team, who then proactively start reaching out and asking about how can we help with this specific customer opportunity that you're working on, or what are some other customer opportunities that we can work on together. So I would say those are some of the key opportunities I see out there in the APJ market right now. Definitely, the marketplace opportunity needs to be tapped upon. We're seeing some good demand signals, so vertical specialization is super important. Partner to partner collaboration, quite under leveraged, but these opportunities also unlock conversations as well as
Mhm.
different kinds of opportunities in markets which may be untapped upon. And last but not the least is thinking about AI more as an acceleration and not just the end goal or just the
Mhm.
destination.
Mhm. Brilliant. Thank you for that, Mokshika. One follow up question or an onion peeling question. I promise it's the last question. So, if you were advising a founder, entering APJ for the very first time, what is the first motion you would tell them to prioritize?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I think it's a fact that more and more ISVs are operating as a global business, and rightly so, as boundaries are getting blurred, and of course, we are seeing digital procurement in general on the rise, so it only makes sense to do so. But I think there are a few essentials when it comes to assessing market readiness or market expansion readiness in a different geography. And first things first is making sure that you are setting up your boots on the ground. And it does mean that if you do not have people or teams based out here in APJ, that does cause some trust issues with customers as well, because they are keen to understand what sort of capability and presence you have in the region as they start to engage on conversations together. Now, it also may seem again, something very foundational. But the fact that you've invested in the overall APN program, some of which I was mentioning earlier, whether it's the ISV Accelerate, attaining a competency designation, or even the basics of making sure your solution is foundational technical review certified.
Yeah,
Again, these are not just checklist items.
yeah.
These are trust signals, and a lot of customers are looking for that. A lot of sales teams are looking for that to understand, do you have the credibility and the capability in that specific vertical sector domain that helps them in investing time as well. So it is definitely a consideration before sort of investing that time. And the third piece I think we touched upon earlier was launched opportunities, and that sort of does go a little deeper into the fact that expansion is top of mind for you and you're actively thinking in that direction. So it's not just one of the many objectives that you have, rather you've been working on that co-sell execution muscle. You've been creating and closing pipeline in a specific geography, which again contributes to that credibility and trust factor that customers and sales teams alike are looking for.
Yeah.
So those are the three things I would say, in a sense, setting up your boots on the ground and working on that, and then you see that that momentum starts to more naturally convert into deeper traction from sales team and deeper traction from customers as well.
Awesome. Thank you. There was so much to unpack there. That was very, very helpful, Mokshika. So, truly incredible. Thank you very much. And I always love to sit down and have a conversation with you where your perspective is so grounded in actually what's happening in the field. So, thank you again. And to our audience, thank you again for tuning in to the Gen GTM show. And for everyone listening, if you are building your AWS motion across APJ, you have to replay this episode and watch again. So there are so many signals that Makshika has shared in here that could change your trajectory. So again, thank you, Makshika, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen.